Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Emma. Um, awesome. So we're recording, which is great, and I'm going to get started. So today we are going to talk about the art and science of exploration for career fulfillment. And it's so funny, this title, because we do a lot at Woken to make sure things are a science, but at the same token, there's a bit of the intuitive element that has to play in when we think about career clarity and career fulfillment. So, we're going to talk very holistically today about what that all looks like. Again, I'm going to jam pack everything, content wise, and then feel free to write in the chat as you have questions, and we'll definitely have time at the end for questions as well. So first and foremost, who am I? And I see some familiar faces, so I know some of you. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel Serwetz, and my journey began in the corporate world. I worked at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater, but I was informally referred to career to help with folks' careers, to help hundreds of professionals over the course of my early career. And this was just on the side of my job, and I saw a lot of patterns and challenges of what folks were facing, and eventually decided, you know what, I enjoy doing this. I think I'm helpful, at this. I want to learn more. And so I got coaching training through NYU, and I got certified through the International Coach Federation. And later I did a tech MBA at NYU Stern. And then I've been career coaching at various organizations that you can see here, as well as building my own company for about 3.5 years. And so Woken is really all about building digital tools, and we offer live career coaching as well as digitized tools to make sure that effective career coaching is accessible and affordable for every professional who needs it and wants it and deserves it, which is all of you guys. So that is the journey that I'm on. And essentially, I just see all the patterns and the challenges that folks face, and I try to build that into tools where you can all be very proactive and intentional at every single career decision. So that is our mission. That is our vision. That is what we stand for. And that is what I do. So that's me. And I'm happy to talk more about, anything in my journey if it's helpful. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of things. So how and why it's important to find a job you love, debunking some limiting mindsets. A lot of people make career decisions for sort of reasons that are sort of popular but may not always serve you. What's the mental model for how to choose your next work opportunity? We're going to talk through a self-reflection exercise to actually help you get started in thinking about what you might love doing. Practical next steps. So we're going to break down career exploration into an actual process, and we're going to talk a little bit about job searching as well, and then of course questions, and you can use the chat the entire way through. Okay. And like I said, if anybody's willing, we want to know who's here and who's with us. So feel free to edit your name in Zoom so we can know who's here, and we can follow up with you accordingly to send you some additional resources and next steps. Okay. So how did we get here? The reason I talk about this is because we are part of a bigger system. Our school maybe only provides us with so many levels of support, but that doesn't mean that that's sort of what you deserve to receive, right? And so what happens is very few students actually get the right career support from the undergraduate level or prior. And so what's happening is we're disengaged at work. Right here, we're quoting millennials, but even 70% of the US employees at large are disengaged at work. And that number is much higher on a global scale. And what do we do when we're disengaged at work? Naturally, we job hop, but that's a Band-Aid solution. It's not a strategic solution. And we're feeling anxiety around figuring out which path is right or best for us. Why does all of this matter? In the research, it says that we're sleepwalking through our career, or we have a purpose gap with what we want to do versus what we're doing. It also limits your wealth potential when you're not engaged in your work. And of course, as you guys probably well know, it affects your physical and mental health when you're not engaged at work. And even for companies and society at large, there's costs to job attrition and lower productivity. So I know I don't have to convince you why this is important, but I like to show you that there's a bigger picture here, because we sometimes forget we're part of a system where there might be patterns or reasons why we've gotten here, and you kind of need to extricate yourself a little bit from that system in order to take control over what's in your power, right? And what decisions you can make, even despite what is offered to you or what support may or may not have been available to you. So benefits and impacts to finding a job you love. This sounds fluffy, right? Oh, let's find a job we love. But why is it actually helpful to find a job you love? First and foremost, studies show that when you love what you do, you get better at it, you make more money at it, and you make more money faster. These are all things that we want. And this is tied to being engaged at work and finding a job that's a fit for you, right? How interesting is that? Sometimes we make decisions thinking it's going to be this secure path, but in fact, what I always say, the most secure path is the one you're interested in doing. So why else is it important to find a job you love? Well, first and foremost, it helps you be efficient and effective in your job search, right? So if you need to narrow down who you're trying to network with, where they are, what the right opportunities are, how do you sell yourself in an interview, etc. There's so many components of how career exploration and career clarity benefits your job search. It also makes for more organic career development. So when you're in a role that really intrigues you and you love, the second step and the third step and the fourth step beyond that becomes so much easier to figure out where to go next, because it just happens organically and it kind of just flows, right? Versus at every juncture, you don't want to have to be saying, oh, what's next for me? We want it to organically evolve by being in an environment you're really intrigued. We're going to see what just naturally arises in terms of opportunities from next steps, right? It also feels better when you feel certain about what path is right for you. It's a sense of relief and excitement where you can actually spend time focusing on how do I forge the path I want versus how do I spend all this mental energy figuring out the path I want, right? So my clients at the end of the day, they'll feel that relief and that excitement versus the stress of the uncertainty, right? So it just feels better when you sort of can understand what path is right for you, okay? And of course, people rarely succeed unless they have fun in what they're doing. And so many influential, successful people have said versions of that. And I'm going to make all of these inspirational quotes a little more realistic and practical today in terms of how to actually make that a reality, okay? So I'm going to give you a quick, another piece of inspiration here, which I always love to play. So I'm going to give you 1 second here. This is very loud. All right.
Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle.
So what's so funny about that is that he says, you'll know when you found it. You'll know when you find it. And that's what we're going to talk about when I start to explain career exploration. That's the art and the science. There's the science of what are the practical steps you can take to find career clarity, but the art is the intuition in the sense of you're going to know deep down with certainty and with confidence when you found it. Now we're going to talk about how to make it practical to get to that point. But you heard what he said, right? We know who that is, Steve Jobs. We respect him. We love him. Okay? So you'll know when you found it. And you'll know when you haven't found it. So if you haven't yet found it, it means there's still more to go. And again, I'm going to make this practical for you, okay? So let's talk about some limiting mindsets. These are the typical approaches that people take when they're making career decisions. And we're going to debunk a lot of those for you, okay? So first and foremost, we're usually stressed about these decisions. And like anything, we don't ever really want to make impactful decisions when you're in a place of stress. But when you feel that stress, what do we typically do? We go to the job board, we start applying to things, whatever we do, right? Instead, I want you to apply structure. I want you to notice those moments of stress and say, okay, what is my ultimate goal? Is my goal figuring out my path? Is my goal getting a new job? Whatever it might be. What are the practical steps I can or should take in order to get to that point of reaching my goal? So remember to be process oriented and finding not just structure, but support in the process, right? Are you missing some level of guidance to help you reach that goal versus I'm stressed, let me just take action? Usually things don't work so well when that's the way and the place and the time that we operate and make decisions from that place, okay? So secondarily, security. Like I said earlier, sometimes people make decisions to say what job is secure. And by the way, I'm not saying don't find a secure path, but when you choose it just for that reason alone, it can backfire because who's to say that's a right fit for you? Who's to say you're going to enjoy it? Who's going to say you're going to be good at it? Maybe you end up quitting. Maybe you end up getting let go if it's not the right fit for you. So we need it to be both secure and a right fit. And I always say the most secure path is the one you're interested in because it's the one where you're going to want to learn. It's the path where you're going to want to be a leader in the room. It's going to be the path where you want to learn and you want to be the person who actually genuinely cares about the work. And how many people on your team do you actually see acting that way? Sometimes very few. So if you can stand out because you are that leader, you are the person who cares, you are the person who learns, you're the person who wants to be there, you are going to shine and you are going to get that promotion, right? You're going to be the one who really excels in that journey. So oftentimes we assume we can't do things before we even really know what that path entails. So usually we're like, you know what, this path, it seems like out of reach for me. It seems impossible. I want you to allow yourself the opportunity to learn about both what you want and what it takes to get there before you tell yourself you can't do it. Allow yourself to learn about what the path entails and what you want before you assume you can or can't do it, okay? Be open-minded first and give yourself the benefit of the doubt. There's so many ways to learn and get where we want to go. So oftentimes we look at our past. And by the way, recruiters, we know this. Yes, they judge us based on our resume. But it's your story that's going to help somebody understand what you want. What's your background, but what are your strengths and what's your direction? Where do you want to go? What are you the best at? What are you a fit for? What should I hire you to do? Right? That's all the story that comes to life, that's authentic, that's believable versus, oh, this was my major or this is what I've done in the past. This is what I have to do next. I always say feeling stuck is a choice. If you're stuck and grounded based on only what you've done, I've seen so many people pivot based on so little. Like you don't have to go back to grad school to just make a pivot, right? So be open-minded to how strong your story, how far your story can get you when you actually know what you're looking for, okay? So oftentimes people think about the long term in terms of their career. They think, what am I going to be in 30 years or 20 years or 50 years, right? I'd rather you actually think about the short term. So what do you want to do right now? What would be so exciting and suitable and fitting that you would be so happy to be there right now? And that, we'll see where that leads us. Now, it's okay to say, what do I want to do right now and where could that lead, so you at least understand the potential future paths. But I'd rather you over index on what do I want to do right now, because when you choose something that's 30 years down the line, you're going to change, the industry's going to change, and so it doesn't make sense really ever to make such a far out goal. What are you going to be happy doing right now? And that's going to lead to an informed path that's still a little bit unpredictable in the best kind of ways, okay? Balance of informed yet unpredictable, right? So oftentimes people tell me they're open to any role, they're open to any industry. Oh my gosh, this is my biggest pet peeve because it's the thing that people say the most. And we all think that being open in our job search is better for some reason, but it's not. I'd rather you be picky. If you say you're open, it's because you don't know which is the best fit for you. But if you say you're open and you're looking at 5 different roles, what are the odds you land in a role that's like the 5th best for you versus figuring out what's the first best thing for you? And then how do you go after that? So do you see what I'm saying? When you're open and you have options, it means you haven't compared and contrasted enough to figure and learned enough and reflected enough to figure out the best fit and thus have a narrow direction. So I always say, if you're looking at 5 roles, it doesn't necessarily mean there's more opportunities that you're opening yourself up. You could figure out the one role for you and still look at 50 opportunities in that one role, right? We want to figure out what's best for you. We want you to be picky. And again, still look at the volume of opportunities, but know what role is best, what industry is best, what environment is best, okay? Being open opens yourself up to the opportunity that you land in something that may not be the best fit, okay? Oftentimes we make decisions based on just what we're aware of, but there's 160,000 different roles just in the US alone. That doesn't mean you have to learn about every single one, but I'd rather you say, I don't know. I'm considering A, B, and C. Help people help you by being honest about where you are in the journey and what you're considering. Be honest with yourself and be honest with others to figure out where you are, what you need to learn, and where you're going, right? Don't just make a decision based on like, oh, we're probably aware of 20 roles off the top of our head. But there's so much more out there, and this requires learning. We often think of interviews as something we need to do really well. I'd rather you think of interviews as a conversation. Who do you want to talk to about what, why, when, where, how, right? Conversation, interviews, and networking are a mirror into the work you may be doing, the people you may be working with, the problems and topics you're going to talk about, right? So don't just think of it as this transactional thing we have to do well, because then you're going to maybe land a job you don't actually want because you just interviewed so well. And by the way, I've been there. It's not fun, okay? We often think about applying. We're often just job boards, applying online. I'd rather you explore and learn and clarify what path you actually want to pursue before you apply to anything. And by the way, even in job search, online job boards are not the #1 best strategy anyway for landing your next role. But again, we just think, oh, applying, because it's the only thing we're aware to do. Okay, so take a step back and realize there might be some other things here to help you in your journey besides just applying to things online, okay? We often look at others around us, but in the end of the day, you are the only one that matters here. Yes, you might be taking care of a family or whatever that might be, but you are the one living and breathing every single day, waking up and feeling what this job feels like. You have to make decisions for yourself. You are the one who's either going to look back and say, years later, did I regret not exploring? Did I regret not making a change? Did I regret not, figuring out what I want? You are the one who's going to live and breathe with all these feelings and thoughts, right? So don't worry about anyone else. If they help you, great. If they don't help you, leave it be. And a lot of our loved ones think that they're career coaches. Take it or leave it, right? Find the advice and the support and the guidance that actually serves you, okay? We often make decisions out of fear. Instead of fear, I always say replace fear with learning. It's normal to have uncertainties. It's normal to have anxieties. But when you feel that, ask yourself, what are these anxieties rooted in? Are there questions I can get answered? Is there something practical I can do to move the needle on my learning or reflection in my direction? Versus just, I'm feeling this stress, I'm feeling this anxiety, and where do we go with it? Maybe make not great decisions. Replace fear with learning, okay? So often we talk about doing something versus deep down we know we should do something. So what are you thinking about in the back of your head, and how long might it take you to pull the plug and actually, do it, right? How long do you want to think about this before taking a step forward? And the good news is career exploration is a safe space where you can learn before actually quitting or job searching, right? So take comfort in the fact that exploration is a safe way of exploring what you want before you actually really do anything at all. But just ask yourself, how much have I been thinking about this? What do I think about doing? What do I talk about doing versus when do I actually do it, right? All right, so here's how to think about your next work opportunity. I'm going to give you a formula of 3 things, okay? So number 1, function. The function is what you're doing all day. It's the skills, it's the tasks, it's those actions of what comprises your day, right? Now, this is separate from content. Content is essentially the problems we're solving. So for example, function might be you're a teacher, you're a salesperson, you're a coder, you're a facilitator, you're a trainer, you're a researcher, you're an analyst, but the content would be, what are you analyzing? What are you teaching, right? So separate those 2 things. Content is essentially the sectors of our world. There are products and services out there as it relates to education, fashion, finance, environment, all these sectors of our world. Function is what you do all day. Content is where you apply that. right? You could do various roles in various different contents or contexts, right? And then the third piece is environment. So what does it look and feel like? Who are the people around you? What are the values of those people? Is it a fast pace? Is there travel? Is it remote? This is the environment around you. So now here are the words you actually hear. You hear role, you hear industry, you hear culture. But let's break it down. What is a role? It's the function. What is an industry? It's the content. What is the culture? It's the environment. So this is the mental model. In the ideal world, you would clarify what you want, what would be the best fit for you as it relates to each of these three buckets. Now, if you can clarify what you want as it relates to each of these three buckets, then how much easier is it going to be to go find the right people to network with, find the right opportunities, interview really well, tell them what you're looking for, tell them what the right fit is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So you want to clarify these three buckets. And then our goal would be, how do we find and land an opportunity that's as close as possible to what we know is a fit for us? Okay. And it's not going to be perfect, but say you clarify what would be ideal in each of these buckets, and then you find something that's like a 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 on each of these buckets. You're easier to find and assess those opportunities when you know what you're looking for. Okay. So let's do a self-reflection exercise. So get a quick piece of paper or get a digital piece of paper, memo pad, Google Doc, or just handwritten, paper. And what I'll do is I'll pin myself here for a second, or spotlight for you guys. But basically, I'm going to walk you through some thinking exercises. Okay. So get a piece of paper and I'm going to give you some prompts, some thinking prompts. And so really just free form, write some thoughts down as I'm giving you these prompts. It's okay. I'm going to go a little fast, but it's okay if it's not perfect. Just jot down as much as you're thinking as I'm giving you these food for thought questions. Okay. So section 1, you remember that's function, right? So I want you to start thinking about a few experiences you chose to take on. Maybe they were projects within work or outside of work, or things you were happy to take on, even if it was handed to you, things you were excited to pursue. It could be a project, it could be a volunteer, it could be, again, something within a current or prior role. It could be something all the way back to, years ago. Could be outside of work, in work. I want you to start listing down different experiences you either chose and or were excited to pursue. And then what I want you to do is start thinking about the verbs. What were you doing in that experience? So say you pick some sort of project. Were you researching? Were you analyzing? Were you, proceduralizing something? Were you training, teaching? Were you writing? Were you reading? Were you, collaborating? Were you selling? Were you advising? Were you, were you building? Were you, et cetera? Were you drawing? What were the verbs? Break it down, that experience, into various action phrases. And then once you start fleshing out that list, I want you to build on that list. So now you have a short list of these verbs and these phrases. Add to it. What else? What other verbs, what other phrases come to your mind so that it becomes a short list of functions that you love doing? Maybe you love organizing. Maybe you love, motivating others. Maybe you love, listening to others' problems. Like, think about these action phrases, these verbs, and start that short list. I'm going to give you some more prompts. So if somebody were to ask you to do a project today, what would it be? If somebody were to ask you to do a project today, what would it be? And this could be in your current role, or this could be outside of your current role. If somebody were to pay you to do something, and it could be anything, they're going to pay you to do anything. What is it you want them or they should ask you to do? What would you enjoy doing? What would you be great at? What, do you want to look into something? Do you want to write about something? Do you want to solve a problem? Do you want to think about a problem? Do you want to research a problem, right? What should they ask you to do? What project? If somebody were to ask you to do any project today, what would it be? Think of times you help others and or what they come to you for help with. What do you enjoy helping others with? That's another way of thinking about the functions that you enjoy doing. Okay, so that's section number 1. And by the way, you can keep thinking about all of that stuff. These are just a few prompts. And by the way, I have a full-blown career assessment that asks you more of these questions, but this is just to get the wheels turning. Second section, are we ready? Give me a thumbs up. We're ready for the content section. So content is, I'm going to give you some more, prompts here. Topics you read about or topics you might listen to. Maybe it's on the news. Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a magazine, whether digital or print. Maybe it's social media. Who do you follow? What accounts? Are there people talking about certain topics that you really pay attention to, that you follow? Right? What are you paying attention to? What articles are you clicking on, reading on? Maybe talking about with others, thinking about. What problems or topics are you focused on when you're digesting information around you, or thinking or talking or reading or listening? What are those topics, those problems, right? Problems in the world you feel need solving. Our world has tons of problems, right? What are some of those problems that you are like, how does this still exist? This isn't okay, right? We need to improve something. And why? You might have some reason for caring about that. Dig deep. Who needs help with what, right? There's so many, but each person cares about the different problems in a different way, right? So there's certain sectors of this world that, like, my brain just, like, I just don't have an interest in it, right? But there's some things I care about more. What are those problems, those sectors, those topics that stand out to you as more interesting, more important, more intriguing? Another prompt in the content section is products or services you find interesting. So maybe you use an app, or it could be a service, a physical service, a store, or it could be a digital service. It could be a magazine you read, an app you used. It could be anything that you're like blown away. And this could be in any amount of years. Maybe it was 10 years ago. Maybe it was yesterday. And maybe you're like telling your friend, you have to use this thing, and they don't care, but you're like, can't stop talking about it. What are those products or services that you're think so, they're so interesting, they're so innovative to you, right? That's another trigger for the types of things in this world that are interesting to you as it relates to content. So the third section is what I call environment. Okay, so I want you to think about, do you want to be in a small organization, medium, large, right? And there's different ways of thinking about the differences there. I'm happy to talk about that later. But what is your instinct as it relates to the size, maybe, or the pace of the environment? Do you want to travel? Do you want to be in a remote environment? And also, really, what are the traits of the people around you that you want to work with, right? What are the values? What's the culture? Another way of thinking about the environment is actually closing your eyes for a second and seeing, what do you see? Okay, so sometimes our instinct, our gut, can see it. Does it look really corporate? Does it look like a small, scrappy startup? What does it look like? Who are the people? Are you walking around meeting with people? Are you sitting? Are you meeting with clients? Are you meeting with your team? What can you see? Is it really buttoned up? Are people in suits? Are people laid back? What does it look and feel like when you see it? That often gives us really good instincts around what's next for us and what we want. Okay. So again, this is just starting the food for thought. But I will give you, a few more slides here of content. Again, feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. And before you know it, we'll be open to Q&A. So let me reshare my screen. And we're going to start to dive into the practical next steps here. Okay. So what is career exploration? The good news is career exploration is the journey you can go on to gain clarity and confidence in the right role and the right industry for you. So it is a process that is distinct from and a precursor to the job search. It includes a series of steps of practical learning and self-reflection in order to compare and contrast and prioritize and narrow in and clarify which role and which industry and which environment is the best fit for you until you reach a point of confidence. That's the key outcome here. Now, why is it so important that exploration must come before job search? One, make sure it's efficient. Who do you need to network with? What roles do you even want, right? Make it faster for you to find that great opportunity. Make sure your interviews can be strong and effective, that your story is clear. Why are you a right fit for this role? Think about career exploration as a way of reverse engineering all the questions they're going to ask you in the interview. You need to ask yourself those questions in an independent setting so you can have answers that you believe before they can believe it. And of course, job fulfillment. If we go through career exploration, we're increasing the likelihood that you're actually going to enjoy and be great at that role, right? That's obvious. So, okay, what does the journey entail? What does career exploration look and feel like? First and foremost, commitment. It does take a little bit of time and effort. So you have to say to yourself, am I in a place, am I ready for the next few weeks or a few months to actually sit down and do a little bit of work every week, maybe for 2 months, 3 months, to go through this exploration journey? That's a matter of readiness. That's a matter of having support and structure and guidance. Figure out what's going to get you ready, okay? Second step, reflection. We just started that reflection exercise, so I already got you a head start. But you would keep reflecting on the function, the content, and the environment. You would then translate the function into potential roles and the content into potential industries. Once you have options, and by the way, I'm happy to help. This is what I do. I help people facilitate and make this easier. But if you were to do it on your own, I'm explaining what the process is. Once you narrow in on potential roles and industries, you need to learn deeply, research, networking, experiential learning, and mainly reflection and iteration. So when you learn about all the options, you then synthesize them and say, you know what did I learn? And what do I feel about what I learned? And what do I do next? And you do that on a weekly basis. And so say you learn about roles that don't sound great, or you learn about roles that do sound great. You need to keep doing these loops and iterative, loops in order to get to the point of narrowing in on which is the best fit. So learning enables you to compare and contrast and prioritize until you get to the point of saying, this role feels like the best fit, this industry feels like the best fit. It's not to say that everything else isn't right for you, but there's something that must be the best fit, given the fact that these roles differ, right? How do they differ, and which is best for you and why? That leads you to figure out which is the right path and hopeful job fulfillment. And of course, after this would become job search and then job fulfillment. So I always say, if you still have options, you haven't done either enough learning and or reflection. Whenever you still have options for roles and options for industries, it requires more learning or more reflection until you reach the point of saying, this is the right best fit for me. Okay. I'm going to talk very quickly about job search, and then I think that's probably my last agenda item. So, top 3 strategies. Are you being transactional versus considering what conversations you'd enjoy having with whom and about what? We sometimes just see, and I alluded to this earlier, we see job search as this very transactional thing versus, okay, interviews and networking are a mirror into, what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be talking about, who are we going to be working with. So don't try to check the box, right, in just doing it well. Who do you want to talk to about what, where, when, why, right? Okay, they are conversations. They are a mirror into the work. Are you plugging away heads down, or are you reflecting on how it's going and iterating your strategy? So job search reflection is super, super, super important, right? So if you are just like doing the same thing every week for months on end, let me know if that's successful. But we need to be iterative. We need to reflect and be self-aware. So maybe you're trying something and something's working, something's not working. We need to tweak our own process and improve our own process. Okay. And then are you clear in what role and what industry is the best next step for you? Or are you applying to a multitude? Whenever you're applying to various roles in various industries, that's likely the reason you're struggling in job search, because you have to clarify what the best fit is, so that when you interview and you tell your story, it's clear. If they pick up the phone on an interview and they hear that you're like not totally sure about what you're looking for and why it's right for you, that's not the person who gets hired. But unfortunately, that's what most candidates do. And that's why interviewing is so difficult for both sides. If both sides of the coin have clarity on what they're looking for, how much easier is it for both people to assess fit? Okay. Remember, if career search isn't fun, your job won't be either. Right? Networking should be enjoyable. What professional conversations do you want to have about topics, about problems that you actually find important and intriguing and interesting? We forget, right? It's okay to enjoy this in a professional means, right? What professional topics, problems do you want to be solving and talking about and thinking about? Right? It's okay to figure out, what do I enjoy? What feels creative and productive and innovative to me? And how do I go find where that is in this world? Okay. So what do we do at WOKEN? We literally guide you through this entire process. We also guide you through the job search, but we really teach you what to do, how to do it, give you a workspace, give you accountability and support. And literally, this is my job to make sure you can go through this process in a way that's authentic to you, in a way that's easy and manageable, structured and clear. That is what we do. I'm going to tell you a super quick story before I wrap up. So we've got man A, interest in the human mind. He goes to graduate school. He completes school. He becomes a psychologist. He leads a happy, secure life. Man B, he applies, but he drops from school. He goes to work in a family business, feels stuck, never repursues his interest, feels a daily physical drain and stress, did not reach his earning potential. By the way, man B is my father. Okay. And what could your life look like as it relates to your ideal journey or the worst version? And I want you to reflect for 5 seconds right now. What would it feel like to pursue what feels ideal to you, what feels like the biggest potential to you, versus what if you didn't? What if you were scared? What if you made choices not from the place of, potential? What if you didn't explore? What is that going to feel like? What is that going to look like? And by the way, this is the last 5 seconds I ever want you to feel that ounce of potential regret. It's not a good feeling because, by the way, this man lives with this feeling every day and he's 66. Okay? I know you don't want that. I know we want to explore things that are exciting and secure. You want a secure path? Yes. But we want something exciting and fitting and challenging and suitable to you and all of those good things. And that is feasible to find if you take a little bit of time and effort to learn and reflect on where it is and what that is. So that's it. We are waking up the world to remember you can and should find a job you love. We believe that every working professional deserves career support at every juncture in their journey. This is what we do. Get in touch. Of course, I'm here to answer questions, but reach out, stay in touch with us. This is what we do. We're here to support you. We want to hear from you. I offer a free 30-minute career coaching call. If you'd like to chat one-on-one, I'm very happy to do so. The link is here, and I'll put the link in the chat as well. But that is it. That is us. That is what I have. But please let me know your questions. I'm very happy to answer questions. If there's anything on your mind, please let me know. Hopefully this was helpful. And I'll put these links here so you can check us out. But please reach out and let me know if I can answer any questions while we're here. Anybody have anything on their mind they could use some help with, or any other follow-up questions? I know I just gave you a lot to think about and a lot of information. All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm straight out of university and I feel like I did business major and I feel like I have not explored other parts, and I was also busy studying and being involved in school that I have not explored outside. And now that I'm done with university, I'm graduated, I feel like I have a lot to find and see and try, and I have not done anything. Unfortunately, my university didn't even have like associations to get involved in. So I was really held back. And now I feel like I want to picture all this like my ideal career and everything, but it's hard because I have a lot of interest, but I have not tried it to even then apply for it. So
Right.
what do I?
So are you working right now, or are you like actively job searching right now?
Actively job searching.
Okay. So look, people often think, and by the way, I should add this to the list. What people often think is that you have to try something in order to know if you like it. But the process of career exploration is to be able to avoid that. So when you go through the journey of career exploration, it allows you to figure out the best next step for you without, like, we often think, oh, I've got to just get into the role to try it to see if I like it. Or to your point, I have all these things I would love to try. And if your university didn't have associations, I totally understand that. But literally that is what career exploration is for. And I know this can seem like a crazy concept because unfortunately career exploration isn't extremely normal yet or mainstream yet. And this is why I'm here, but I'm one of the only career coaches even saying these words of career exploration. But So this is why it's kind of hard for all of us to wrap our head around, because we haven't seen this. We're not used to this. We're not familiar with this. But this is the process to exactly tackle the problem you're describing, because how you can't try everything. Say you've got 6 different interests. What are you going to try? Like, and by the way, this is why rotational programs, people think rotational programs are good. But to me, that's just a waste of your time. Why not go through exploration, clarify what's best for you, and then job search to find that best fit role? Versus, to your point, how can I try all these different things? It's not a matter of trying. It's a matter of learning about each one deeply so that you feel informed about which one you want to try, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, can you explain ways to learn about them? Like, of course, like I'm attending workshops, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, this process is a bigger process, but the core elements are research and networking and experiential learning, but there's the reflective iterative element to it. So again, this is like what I guide people to do, but if you're going to do it on your own, start with a little research, move into networking, talk to professionals who are in each of those roles in each of those industries, but just simply make sure to do the iterative nature, right? So when you learn about each of the roles in each of the industries, digest what you've learned, figure out what it means, and iterate to say, who do I want to talk more to and less to? So it has to be very fluid until you reach the point of saying, I have learned enough, compared, contrasted, and prioritized each option to get to the point of figuring out which one's the best fit for me. So networking is the crux of that. Research is a component of that. Webinars, skill development is a portion of it. You can try a course, but truly networking is the biggest crux of how you're going to learn. But there's a lot to know about how to network effectively. Who can you leverage? How do you reach out to them? What do you do on that phone call? How do you get accurate information? What do you do after all of that? And by the way, that's a lot of what I help with as well, is to make sure your networking can be fruitful. But that's the crux of how you would really learn about each of your options. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read these questions. So do you think as we get older, the age factor keeps us tied to the past? If not, are there specific things someone should do differently? Honestly, Neha, no. Age is just a number. But look, can people judge you based on your background? Of course. Do I see people pivot at any and every single age? Of course I do. You are the one living and breathing this feeling. And if you know that your past or your current role is not a fit for you, take steps to uncover what the best next steps would be. Now, does it mean you could be a little open? We have to assess, are you open to, does it require graduate school? Do you want to go back? Do you not want to go back? And by the way, even if you don't want to go back to graduate school, that's fine. But give yourself the opportunity to be open to explore what would be right for you. And by the way, 15 to 20 years, I see people pivot way later than that. So think about this. How long do you want to wait? How much longer do you want to wait? Right? Why wait? Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if you have follow-up questions to that. Brenda, thank you so much. A couple of questions. During your work experience, how did you know it was time to make the shift and start WOKEN? Well, a few things. Number one, you know when it's time for a change because you just feel it. I know that sounds fluffy, but that's the art. That's the gut. That's listening to yourself. You know when you're not feeling challenged. You know when there's no more learning. You know when there's no growth potential. You know when you're not feeling fulfilled, that you can innovate, that you can be productive and creative. You know that. You feel that. That's when you know it's time for a shift, either growth upward, sideways. What the next step is an open question. But you know when you feel it. You know when you're ready for a change. Right? Assess how you feel. For me, starting WOKEN was because it took me 6 years to clarify my own path. When I did the coaching program, I realized I loved helping people with career support, but I also loved systemization and digitization and productization. So when I figured that out, I combined those two things. That's when I knew. And by the way, I didn't say, I just want to start a company. I said, here's what I love doing, is helping people with career exploration in a systematized way. I didn't see anyone else doing it. If I saw another company doing it, I would have just joined them. I felt I had to go create this because I knew what my path was and I didn't see it existing. That's why entrepreneurship felt right for me. But for you guys, what I want you to encourage is what is right for you. And then is somebody already doing it, in which case I can just join the bandwagon, or is there some reason why you might be hinting at, is entrepreneurship right for me? And by the way, I always encourage you to look into entrepreneurship as if you were to look into any other role, because it is a job and it requires all different kinds of things that you may not know. So look into it if you're considering it as if you were looking into anything else. What were some of the signs you couldn't continue in the different industries you were in? The sign was that I landed a role because I got so good at interviewing. I was scared because I felt that being in the corporate world was the secure thing that I had to do. I felt pressure from my family, but even though they never spoke that pressure, but it was just growing up feeling the need to be secure that kept me tied to the corporate world. But you get to a point where if you know that there's a path that's right for you, even if it's a hard path, you can't ignore it. How long are you going to avoid that feeling? You're going to end up just in roles that you hate or you're not doing well in because you hate it or whatever number of reasons. I accepted a job in an environment that wasn't a good fit for me. And by the way, it lasted a hot 2 months. It just never works out. Either you're miserable or you want to quit or you get fired or something. It's not, you're not excelling, you're not succeeding, you're not happy. There's any number of signs and feelings when something isn't right. So for me, took that job, was pursuing the corporate world because I didn't also have the right guidance. And this is why I do this, because nobody was helping me figure out my next steps at that point. And so took what I knew, took what I felt was the easy, secure, comfortable path. And that backfired because I wasn't happy and it wasn't a fit. And I was lucky that the day after I left that job, I was accepted to NYU Stern. And that gave me the confidence to start the business. But that doesn't mean that you need an MBA to start a business. Just for me at the time, I was so scared that I felt like having a graduate program gave me the false sense of confidence to start a company. Kim, will this recording be available? Yes, I will make it available. We're recording it, so I'll figure out how to get that link out to you guys. Yes, thank you. Awesome. Any other questions I can answer, guys? Let me know. I'm happy to help. I'll put our website link here again. Please stay in touch. If you want to chat one-on-one, I'm very happy to do that. That's what I do. We try to make career coaching as accessible and affordable as humanly possible. We believe that every professional should be intentional and proactive at every step of their journey. And really, that is what we're here for. So yeah, happy to hang on for a few minutes. If anyone has any last minute follow-up questions, let me know. And if not, thank you all for joining. It was great to meet you guys. And Gianna, I see you just joined us, but we're 50 minutes in, unfortunately. I will try to make this recording available via email. So if not, feel free to get in touch, Gianna. Our website is in the chat, but we're kind of wrapping up here. Yes, Amanda, wonderful to see you again. So glad this was helpful, guys. Stay in touch. Let me know how I can help. And if anyone has any last minute questions, let me know. I'll hang on for another minute or two.
Hi, Rachel. My name is Laura. I actually thank you so much for the this advice. It's so helpful, especially the lists in the beginning with the the obstacle and then I guess the resolution.
Yes.
So I had to write everything down. It was definitely the first time that I've ever heard things worded the way that you did. So thank you for that. Also, to kind of piggyback on the age thing, I'm 34. Right, I graduated college a very long time ago with a sociology degree. And right now I'm like in insurance, right, in operations. And I don't know, I find that maybe, with like, I feel like there's a whole tech boom going on, right? And, but I feel old, like at 34, like how can I possibly join that? Or is that something that I should even be looking into just because it's this, interesting sounding, thing, or I'm really confused about which direction I should go in. And obviously I know that you can't advise me on that specifically right now, but I don't know, I'm starting to feel discouraged.
I hear you. And by the way, Kim is saying no such thing, right? Because look, you're 34 or whatever age. I mean, to me, that sounds young, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think there's so much opportunity. Look at not what you've done so far, but what is ahead. How much time is ahead of you in your professional journey, right? And what would you like to allow yourself to explore and maybe accomplish? And how should it feel for the rest of your years, however many more years you would like to be working? What should that feel like versus how does it feel now? That's really the main thing to consider. Now, in terms of tech boom and all that kind of stuff, again, it is hard to say right now. Again, those reflective questions hopefully were a little helpful to you, but we have a assessment that I built because unfortunately, again, another issue with the system is most of the career assessments off the shelf don't work very well. So I have my own. But again, my assessment will help you reflect on what function, what content or industry, and what environment, right? It gets the wheels turning. It starts to tease out, what do you love doing? What do you find important? What do you find interesting, etc. And so tech is such a large sector. I always like to break it down because essentially every sector now is tech in some way or has tech or utilizes it. And so we have to break that down into what actual sectors or products or services or whatever is the most interesting to you. So tech is everywhere. So, again, this is the purpose of the assessment is it teases all this out for you. So yeah, that is like a kind of a short answer because like you said, I can't, tell you the answer right now, but that's the long story short with Woken. Like we don't ever really actually tell you the answer. We help you find the answers and we make that as easy to do as possible. So, I know, like you said, it's hard to say right now, but really reflect on, it sounds like there's some hesitation and there's some fear, but the good news is exploration. You can go through this learning journey without job searching, before you job search, before you quit, before you make any big decisions. Exploration is just learning. And so take comfort in that, right? I always say to my clients, it's like, we're just here, just me and you, that's it, right? We're just figuring it out. And that's the safe space, right? It's a sandbox. We're just wrestling through it. We're working through it. We're thinking through it. That's it. Take comfort in that. And, you just want to ask yourself, you want to give yourself the opportunity to explore, right? And again, our job is to make it easy for you to know how to explore, right? To how to structure that. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much. Of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone, any other last minute questions? I'll let Maria join for a second before I tell her we're about to hop off. But, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, again, great to meet you all. Really happy to support you. Stay in touch, get in touch, book a call with me. I'm happy to chat. And, I'll maybe do some more of these events in the future. We typically do them like with a partner. So, our website has an events page. You can sort of sign up just for our email list if you want to stay in touch. But that's mostly what I have for today. So again, thank you so much for joining, and hope to chat with you all soon. Gonna wait for Maria to join so I can tell her we're about to hop off, but I'll email you guys as a follow-up as well, and stay in touch, guys, okay? And if anyone has any last minute questions in the next 5 minutes, I'm here. Thank you, Emma. Maria, we're actually about to hop off. We're 5 minutes away from our session being over. We were here for the past hour, but I will send out the recording. So hopefully if you did register with your email, we will have your email to send you the recording. If not, I will put our website here and you can sign up for our email list. Or I also offer a free one-on-one career coaching call. So feel free to stay in touch, get in touch. But unfortunately, we're hopping off for the day. So thank you all for joining, and I'll talk to you guys soon.